neon orange notice screamed, "Remove your boat or pay $600 a day," on my grandfather's weathered vessel, docked on my own lake, my family's legacy since 1952. The Cedar Grove HOA, with their smug audacity, claimed my water as theirs, hosting lavish tournaments while plotting a resort on my land. Why? Because they thought I'd roll over. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Dive into this battle of greed versus justice. Like, share, and subscribe to join the fight. Hit that bell to never miss an update. I stood on the weathered wooden dock, the morning mist curling over Lake Caldwell like a ghost, clutching a letter that set my blood on fire. The Cedar Grove Homeowners Association had the audacity to demand I remove my grandfather's old fishing boat from my own lake within 48 hours or face a $600 daily fine. They even threatened to tow it at my expense, as if I were some squatter defiling their pristine community. The letter's condescending tone, dripping with self-righteous authority, made me laugh, a bitter, incredulous sound. For years, these people had used my family's lake without permission, hosting their fancy fishing tournaments and treating it like their personal playground. Now they dared to dictate terms on my own property. Oh, they had no idea who they were dealing with. I'm Ethan Caldwell, 35, once a burned-out AI engineer from Seattle. A year ago, I sold my startup for a sum that still feels surreal, enough to walk away from the grind of late-night coding and cutthroat boardrooms. But the real cost wasn't measured in dollars. It was the car accident that took my mother, the last tether to my family besides the lake. Her death left me hollow, haunted by the years I'd neglected this place, too busy chasing algorithms to visit the cabin where I'd spent childhood summers. Lake Caldwell, a 40-acre gem in rural Oregon, was my grandfather Amos's legacy. He bought it in 1952, a retired environmentalist who'd fought off mining companies to protect its crystal waters. "Water's life, Ethan," he'd say, his gravelly voice warm as we fished from his 18-foot aluminum boat. "Don't let anyone turn it into a commodity." The cabin, now mine, was my refuge, a rustic haven of pine and memory, upgraded with Wi-Fi and modern plumbing, but still smelling of lake air and history. I came here to heal, to escape the chaos of my old life, but Cedar Grove HOA had other plans. That morning started like any other. I woke with the sun, brewed a pot of black coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and carried my mug to the dock. The lake was still, reflecting the pines like a mirror, and there was Grandpa's boat, tied up as always. It wasn't much, simple, weathered, but sturdy, the same vessel he'd used to teach me how to cast a line. I'd spent weeks restoring it, sanding down rust, feeling his presence in every dent. Then I saw it, a neon orange notice taped to the hull, screaming "Violation" in bold letters. My jaw tightened as I ripped it off, scanning the absurd text about community aesthetic standards and unauthorized watercraft. The lake, it claimed, was community waters, and my boat didn't meet their precious guidelines. I thought it was a prank until I checked the mailbox and found the official letter, complete with Cedar Grove's letterhead and the signature of Victor Langston, HOA president. I paced the dock, the paper crumpling in my fist. "Community waters," I muttered. "Since when?" The lake had been in my family for 3 generations, deeded to Grandpa after he stopped a mining company from poisoning the watershed. I could still hear his stories, told under starlit skies, about how he'd stared down corporate suits with nothing but grit and a lawyer friend. Now these HOA bureaucrats thought they could bully me. I grabbed my phone and called Hank Larson, my closest neighbor, a 68-year-old former carpenter who lived half a mile down the shore. Hank had known Grandpa, shared his love for fishing and disdain for petty rules. His tan, calloused hands and dry humor made him an instant ally when I moved in. "Morning, Ethan," Hank's voice crackled through the phone, laced with a chuckle. "Looks like the paper pushers finally sniffed you out." "You see this nonsense," I said, holding up the crumpled notice as if he could see it. "They're telling me to get my boat off my own lake, 48 hours or they start fining me." Hank snorting. "Cedar Grove's been getting bolder every year. Started when they built that fancy neighborhood on the North Shore a decade back. Now they act like they own everything within 10 miles, including your lake." Amos would have chased him off with a shotgun loaded with rock salt. I grinned at the image, Grandpa's no-nonsense attitude legendary in these parts. "They've been using the lake, Hank. You know anything about that?" "Oh yeah," he said, voice darkening. "They're Golden Anglers Club. Bunch of rich folks in overpriced gear, holds fishing tournaments every year. Call it community tradition. Been doing it since your place was empty." Amos would be spinning in his grave. I grinned at the image, Grandpa's no-nonsense attitude legendary in these parts. "They've been using the lake, Hank. You know anything about that?" "Oh yeah," he said, voice darkening. "They're Golden Anglers Club. Bunch of rich folks in overpriced gear, holds fishing tournaments every year. Call it community tradition. Been doing it since your place was empty." Amos would be spinning in his grave. My grip tightened on the phone. "Tournaments on my lake without asking?" "Yup, got a big one this weekend too. $6,000 in prizes, fancy barbecue, the works, all on your East Shore. You should check their website, shameless about it." I hung up, my mind racing. I fired up my laptop, the cabin's Wi-Fi humming as I pulled up Cedar Grove's site. There it was, glossy photos of their annual lakeside fishing derby, men in designer vests holding up trout, tents and grills sprawled across my property. They called Lake Caldwell our community's jewel, as if they'd staked a claim. The latest post hyped their biggest event yet, set for Saturday, complete with a $6,000 prize and a catered party. The gall was staggering. They'd been exploiting my lake for years, taking advantage of my absence after Mom's death and Dad's years of neglect. I'd been too buried in work to check on the place, and they'd pounced. "You've gotta be kidding me," I said to the empty cabin, my voice echoing off the pine walls. Guilt twisted in my gut. I'd let the lake sit empty, too caught up in my Seattle life to honor Grandpa's legacy. This was my fault as much as theirs, but that ended now. I called Mia Nguyen, an old college friend and environmental lawyer who'd spent years battling corporations over water rights. She'd understood why I'd walked away from tech, why I needed the lake to find myself again. "Ethan, run this by me," she said, her voice sharp with excitement. "You own the lake, deed and all, and they're telling you to remove your boat, and they're throwing parties on it." "Exactly," I said, pacing. "They've been using it for years. Tournaments, barbecues, the whole deal. No permission, nothing." Mia laughed, a sound of pure delight. This is gold. They're trespassing, plain and simple. You got the deed handy?" "In a filing cabinet," I said. "Grandpa was meticulous. Water rights, land boundaries, all of it." "Good, dig it up. I'll drive up this weekend with my legal kit. We'll bury these clowns. In the meantime, set up security cameras around the lake. High-res, night vision, the works. If they're using your property, we need proof. And Ethan," her tone turned serious, "don't let them touch that boat. If they take it, it's theft. Document everything." I spent the afternoon installing wireless cameras at key points around the lake, hidden in the pines where the HOA held their events. My tech background made it easy. Motion sensors, cloud backups, the whole setup. As I worked, memories of Grandpa flooded back, his calloused hands guiding mine on the fishing rod, his stories about fighting for the lake. "They'll always try to take what's yours, Ethan," he'd said once, eyes fierce. "Stand your ground, but do it smart." I hadn't been smart, letting the lake lapse into neglect, but I was here now, and I'd be damned if I let these HOA vultures steal what he'd fought for. As the sun dipped below the trees, painting the lake gold, I sat on the dock, the violation notice in my lap. A new email pinged, an invitation to Cedar Grove's next HOA meeting. It wasn't personal, just a mass blast, but it felt like a challenge. I'd go, see Victor Langston in action, size up the enemy. My fingers traced the boat's weathered edge, and I whispered, "This isn't just about you, Grandpa. It's about us." The lake was more than property. It was a promise, a piece of my soul I'd let slip away. Cedar Grove had picked the wrong fight, and I was ready to make them regret it. The morning after finding the violation notice, I woke to the scent of pine and the faint hum of my laptop, still open from last night's dive into Cedar Grove's website. The audacity of their claim to my lake gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside, focusing on the plan. Mia's advice echoed, gather evidence, stay sharp. I checked the cameras I'd installed around the lake, their feeds crisp on my phone, capturing every ripple and rustle. Nothing yet, but I knew the HOA's next move was coming. Coffee in hand, I stepped onto the porch, the lake glinting under the dawn like a sheet of glass. That's when I saw it, a sleek black SUV parked near the east shore where the HOA held their tournaments. Two figures stood by the water, gesturing toward my land. My gut told me this wasn't just a morning stroll. I grabbed binoculars and crept through the pines, staying low. One figure was Victor Langston, his slick hair unmistakable even from a distance. The other was a younger man, maybe 20, in a hoodie, typing furiously on a tablet. Victor pointed at the shoreline, his voice carrying faintly. "Prime spot for the marina," he said. "We'll clear the holdout soon." My blood ran cold. Marina? They weren't just using my lake, they were planning to build on it. I snapped photos with my phone, the camera feed already recording. Back at the cabin, I called Hank Larson, my neighbor, needing his take on this. "Hank, you ever hear about a marina project around here?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. He let out a low whistle. Not surprised, but no specifics. Those Cedar Grove folks have been sniffing around for years, talking big about resorts and golf courses. My niece at the county office mentioned some developer buzz last month. Big money, shady permits. You see something? Victor Langston and some kid scoping out my east shore, talking about a marina like it's already theirs. Kid's probably Connor, Victor's son, tech whiz, always glued to a screen. Be careful, he's got a knack for trouble. Victor's been pushing that resort idea since he showed up here. Your lake's the centerpiece. I hung up, my mind racing. A resort. That explained the violation notice. They wanted my boat gone to clean up their community jewel for investors. I pulled up the HOA's website again, digging deeper. Buried in a newsletter archive was a mention of a lakeside vision project with renderings of condos and a dock, all on my property. No wonder they were so bold. They'd been planning this for years, banking on my absence. But I was here now, and they'd underestimated me. The next evening, I drove to the Cedar Grove Community Center, a gaudy building with fake marble columns and a fountain that screamed desperation to impress. I slipped into the back row, blending into the crowd of about 40 residents, most looking bored or annoyed. Victor stood at the podium, his gray suit pristine, his smile all teeth. He droned on about mailbox regulations and lawn care before turning to the lake. "We've had issues with unauthorized activity on our community waters," he said, his voice smooth but edged. "All watercraft must comply with HOA standards to maintain our lake's prestige." I raised my hand, heart steady, despite the eyes turning my way. Victor nodded, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. Yes, the gentleman in the back. I stood, keeping my tone light. Just curious, when you say community waters, who exactly owns the lake? Is there a deed, or does the county manage it? The room stirred, whispers rippling. Victor's smile tightened. The lake's a shared resource under HOA oversight. It's been that way for decades. Interesting, I said, feigning confusion. So the HOA has legal title, or is it a lease from the county? I'd love to see the paperwork just to understand. A few residents nodded, their curiosity piqued. Victor's knuckles whitened on the podium. The details are complex, not for this meeting. Rest assured, we have full authority. He pivoted to the next topic, but his eyes darted to a woman in the front row, Kim Randall, the HOA vice president, her face tight with worry. After the meeting, a man approached, his fishing vest embroidered with a gold hook. Derek Klein, Golden Anglers Club, he said, his handshake firm but calculating. You're new, right? That old cabin by the lake. I nodded. Family place, been coming here since I was a kid. His eyes lit up, but not with warmth. Good to know. You should join our club. Exclusive access to the best fishing spots. Big tournament this weekend. Come check it out. Appreciate it, I said, forcing a smile. Exclusive access to my own lake. The irony burned. As I turned to leave, I caught Victor whispering to Kim and Derek by the coffee table. He's asking too many questions, Victor hissed. We need to move faster. Kim glanced my way, and they fell silent, but I'd heard enough. They were rattled, and I was just getting started. The next evening, I drove to the Cedar Grove Community Center, a gaudy building with fake marble columns and a fountain that screamed desperation to impress. I slipped into the back row, blending into the crowd of about 40 residents, most looking bored or annoyed. Victor stood at the podium, his gray suit pristine, his smile all teeth. He droned on about mailbox regulations and lawn care before turning to the lake. We've had issues with unauthorized activity on our community waters, he said, his voice smooth but edged. All watercraft must comply with HOA standards to maintain our lake's prestige. I raised my hand, heart steady despite the eyes turning my way. Victor nodded, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. Yes, the gentleman in the back. I stood, keeping my tone light. Just curious, when you say community waters, who exactly owns the lake? Is there a deed, or does the county manage it? The room stirred, whispers rippling. Victor's smile tightened. The lake's a shared resource under HOA oversight. It's been that way for decades. Interesting, I said, feigning confusion. So the HOA has legal title, or is it a lease from the county? I'd love to see the paperwork just to understand. A few residents nodded, their curiosity piqued. Victor's knuckles whitened on the podium. The details are complex, not for this meeting. Rest assured, we have full authority. He pivoted to the next topic, but his eyes darted to a woman in the front row, Kim Randall, the HOA vice president, her face tight with worry. After the meeting, a man approached, his fishing vest embroidered with a gold hook. Derek Klein, Golden Anglers Club, he said, his handshake firm but calculating. You're new, right? That old cabin by the lake? I nodded. Family place, been coming here since I was a kid. His eyes lit up, but not with warmth. Good to know. You should join our club. Exclusive access to the best fishing spots. Big tournament this weekend. Come check it out. Appreciate it, I said, forcing a smile. Exclusive access to my own lake. The irony burned. As I turned to leave, I caught Victor whispering to Kim and Derek by the coffee table. He's asking too many questions, Victor hissed. We need to move faster. Kim glanced my way, and they fell silent, but I'd heard enough. They were rattled, and I was just getting started. The air was thick with tension as I drove back from the Cedar Grove meeting, the moon casting long shadows across the lake road. Victor's whispered urgency and Kim's wary glance replayed in my mind. They were plotting something, and my questions had lit a fuse. I checked my phone. The camera feeds were still live, but a new alert pinged. Motion detected near the dock at 11:47 p.m. My pulse quickened. I pulled over, opening the app to see a grainy image of Connor, Victor's son, skulking near my boat with a flashlight. He sprayed something on the hull, paint maybe, then vanished into the trees. I floored it home, fury mixing with dread. This wasn't just sabotage, it was a message. At the dock, I found the damage, a sloppy red scrawl reading "comply or else." The threat was amateur but chilling. I snapped photos, the camera feed already saved, and called Mia. "Connor vandalized my boat," I said, voice tight. "Spray paint, some kind of warning, and I think Victor's planning something big. Heard him say they need to move faster." Mia's tone was razor sharp. "They're desperate. Vandalism's a crime. File a report, but don't expect much from the sheriff. Victor's got friends there. Send me the footage, it's more ammo." I found something in the county records, a preliminary permit application for a Caldwell Shores resort, filed by a shell company linked to Victor. They're pitching it as a done deal, but your deed blocks them. We need to hit back before they escalate. "Escalate how?" I asked, wiping paint off the boat with a rag, the chemical stink burning my nose. "They might try to fake a claim, forge documents, bribe officials. Victor's done it before." I dug up his Florida records under his old name, Victor Langston Sr. He lost his broker license for selling non-existent land rights. This is his playbook. Stay vigilant. I spent the next morning reinforcing my defenses. I upgraded the camera encryption, added motion-activated floodlights, and nailed private property signs along the shore. While hammering the last one, Hank stopped by, his pickup crunching gravel. He eyed the painted thread, whistling low. "Bold little punk that Connor. You tell the sheriff." "Tried," I said, wiping sweat from my brow. "They called it a prank, said to sort it with the HOA. You ever hear of Victor's dad? Same name, worked for a mining outfit Grandpa fought in '72. Hank's eyes narrowed. "Heard rumors. Old man Langston was a snake. Swore he'd ruin Amos after losing that court fight. If Victor's his kid, this ain't just business, it's revenge. Watch your back." That afternoon, I found Grandpa's old journal in a trunk, its leather cover cracked. A 1972 entry read, "Langston Sr. threatened to drain the lake if he lost. Told him I'd die before letting his greed touch this water." My chest tightened. Victor wasn't just after profit, he was settling a score. I tucked the journal away, its weight grounding me. This fight was bigger than me. It was Grandpa's legacy against a family's vendetta. My phone buzzed with an email from Cedar Grove. A courtesy notice about their upcoming fishing tournament, urging residents to respect community guidelines. The lie was brazen. I forwarded it to Mia, who replied instantly, "They're baiting you. Let the tournament happen. We'll use it to trap them. I'm driving up tomorrow with the deed copies and a cease and desist draft." That evening, I walked the shore, the lake's calm surface hiding the storm brewing. A rustle in the bushes made me spin, hand on the flashlight. "Who's there?" I called, beam cutting through the dark. A figure stepped out, Derek Klein, his fishing vest gleaming under the light. "Easy neighbor," he said, hands raised, a smirk playing on his lips. "Just checking the tournament site. Big day Saturday." "On my land," I said, voice low. "You've got no right to be here, Derek." He chuckled, unfazed. "Land's a funny thing. Been community space for years. Nobody complained till you showed up. Victor says it's all legal. You sure you want to stir trouble?" "Legal." I stepped closer, flashlight steady. "I've got a deed from 1952, Derek. What's Victor got? A grudge and a fake map." His smirk faltered. Careful, friend. Victor's not the forgiving type. He's offering you a way out. Join the club, play nice, maybe get a cut of the resort deal. Fight him, and you'll regret it. Tell Victor, I said, voice cold, if he wants my lake, he'll have to pry it from my hands. Now get off my property. Derek backed away, his eyes hard. Your call, but don't say I didn't warn you. He melted into the dark, leaving me with the lake's quiet and my own racing thoughts. The next day, Mia arrived, her SUV packed with legal files. We spread them on the cabin table, the deed's faded ink a shield against Victor's schemes. This is bulletproof, Mia said, tapping the survey map. But Victor's permit application mentions historical easements, a lie to trick investors. We need to expose it. How? I asked, pouring her coffee. Public pressure, she said, eyes gleaming. I called Clara Voss, a reporter I know. She's done HOA exposés. We'll feed her the story after the tournament when we've got undeniable proof. For now, we play dumb. You go into that tournament. Wouldn't miss it, I said. Derek invited me, thinks he can buy me off. Mia grinned. Perfect. Go, observe, record. I'll prep the injunction. We'll hit them when they're cockiest. That night, my cameras caught Connor again, this time planting a Cedar Grove property sign on my shore. I yanked it out at dawn, tossing it into the woods. But as I did, my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. Back off, Caldwell, or the lake burns. My hands shook. Victor wasn't just planning a resort, he was willing to destroy what he couldn't steal. I forwarded the text to Mia, who replied, "Keep it. That's evidence of intent. We've got him." Saturday loomed, the tournament a ticking clock. I cleaned the paint off my boat, its weathered hull a symbol of everything at stake. Grandpa's journal sat on my nightstand, his words a quiet strength. Water's worth more than gold, Ethan. Fight for it. I would, not just for me, but for him, for the lake's future. Victor thought he could bully me into submission, but he'd awaken something fiercer, a resolve forged in memory and righteous anger. The tournament would be his stage, but I'd make it his downfall. The dawn before the Golden Anglers tournament broke with a fiery sunrise, the lake a mirror of reds and golds that belied the storm brewing. My cameras had caught Connor's latest stunt, planting a fake HOA sign, and the threatening text still burned in my mind. Back off, or the lake burns. Victor's desperation was palpable, his vendetta against my family pushing him to reckless edges. I checked the camera feeds again, ensuring every angle was secure, and found a new clip. A group of men unloading crates near the east shore at 3 a.m., their faces shadowed but purposeful. My gut twisted. Were they staging equipment for the resort pitch, or something worse? I sent the footage to Mia, who texted back, "Could be props for investors, or sabotage. Stay sharp. I'm almost there with the injunction papers." By mid-morning, Mia pulled up, her SUV kicking up dust. She strode into the cabin, legal files under one arm, eyes blazing with focus. "The county judge is reviewing our emergency injunction," she said, spreading documents across the table. "Your deed, the 1972 ruling against Langston Sr., and the camera footage make it airtight. Victor's permit application is a house of cards based on lies about community control. We'll serve the injunction at the tournament, maximum impact." "What about the crates?" I asked, showing her the footage. "Looks like they're setting up something big." Mia frowned, zooming in on a crate labeled construction materials. "They're probably staging a mock-up to wow investors, like a model dock or signpost. It's bold, but it plays right into our hands. More evidence of trespassing." She handed me a draft letter to the HOA, polite but pointed, requesting all records of their claimed lake authority. "Send this now, it'll rattle them while we prep the knockout." I nodded, hitting send. then glanced out the window. Trucks were already rolling in on the East Shore, hauling boats and tents for the tournament. The lake, my lake, was about to become a circus. "I'm going down there," I said. "Need to see what they're unloading." "Be careful," Mia warned. "Victor's unhinged. That text about burning the lake. He's cornered, and cornered snakes strike hard." I grabbed a telephoto lens and headed to the tree line, staying hidden. The East Shore buzzed with activity. Derek Klein barked orders as workers set up a massive banner proclaiming 15th Annual Golden Anglers Championship. Boats dotted the water, and a crowd of at least 60 gathered, sipping drinks under branded umbrellas. But what caught my eye was a sleek, temporary platform near the shore, draped with a tarp. Victor stood beside it, shaking hands with 3 suited figures, investors no doubt. He gestured grandly, pointing to the lake and the platform. I zoomed in, catching his words faintly. "Exclusive waterfront, fully secured. We're breaking ground next quarter." My hands shook as I recorded. They were pitching my lake as theirs, right in front of me. Then Connor appeared, whispering to Victor, who nodded and led the investors to the platform. They pulled back the tarp, revealing a scale model of a marina, complete with docks, condos, and a glowing sign, Caldwell Shores Resort. The crowd clapped, oblivious to the fraud. I texted Mia the video. "They're showing a model of the resort, on my land." Her reply was instant. "That's it, we've got them. Judge just signed the injunction. Meet me at the cabin, bring the sheriff." I slipped back through the woods, heart pounding. At the cabin, Mia was on the phone with Clara Voss, the reporter. "Clara's ready to run the story once we act," she said, hanging up. "Sheriff's deputy is en route. We confront them mid-tournament with the injunction and your deed. Public humiliation, legal hammer, Victor won't recover." A knock interrupted us. Hank stood at the door, his face grim. "Just saw something you need to know," he said, stepping inside. "My niece at the county office called. Victor filed an emergency claim yesterday, saying the lake's under an implied easement from decades of use. It's nonsense, but he's got a crooked lawyer pushing it. They're trying to tie you up in court while they woo investors. That's why the crates," I said, pieces clicking. "They're staging a show to lock in funding before we can stop them." "Exactly," Mia said, "but their claim's a bluff. Your 1972 ruling kills it. We move now, before they file more lies." The deputy arrived, a young woman named Torres, her badge glinting. "Got your complaint," she said, scanning the injunction. "This is solid. I'll back you up, but expect pushback. Cedar Grove's got pull around here." We drove to the East Shore, the tournament in full swing. Boats crisscrossed the lake, music blared, and the smell of barbecue hung heavy. Victor stood on the platform, mid-pitch to the investors. "This resort will redefine luxury," he declared, voice booming. "Full control of the lake, guaranteed returns." I stepped forward, Mia and Torres flanking me. The crowd parted, eyes curious. "Victor Langston," I called, loud enough to cut through the noise. "You're on private property. This lake's mine, and you've got no right to be here." The music stopped. Victor's face froze, then twisted into a sneer. "This is a community event," he said, stepping off the platform. "You're out of line, disrupting our tradition." "Tradition?" I held up the deed, voice steady. "This says Caldwell family owns this lake since 1952. You've been trespassing for years, and now you're selling my land to investors." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. An investor, a woman in a sharp blazer, frowned. "What's he talking about, Victor? You said ownership was secured." Victor's eyes darted. "A misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "Historical agreements give us authority. This man's confused." Mia stepped forward, holding the injunction. "Not confused, Mr. Langston. This court order confirms the lake belongs to the Caldwell family. Your agreements are fiction. You're trespassing, and this event is illegal." Derek Klein pushed through, red-faced. "You can't just shut us down," he shouted. "We've run this tournament for 15 years. Who do you think you are?" "I'm the owner," I said, locking eyes with him. "And you're standing on my land, using my lake without permission. Want to talk about rights? Let's start with the crates you snuck in last night. Construction props for a resort you don't own." The crowd gasped. A resident, an older man with a fishing hat, stepped forward. "Hold on," he said. "We pay thousands in HOA fees for lake access. You telling us it's all a lie?" "Exactly," Mia said, handing him a copy of the deed. "The HOA's been misleading you. This lake's private, always has been." Victor's composure cracked. "This is slander," he barked, turning to Torres. "Deputy, arrest these people for disrupting a lawful event." Torres crossed her arms. "I'm here to enforce this injunction, Mr. Langston. Court says this is private property. Everyone needs to clear out, now." The investors huddled, whispering, then started toward their cars. "Wait," Victor called, desperation creeping in. "We can resolve this. Let's talk privately." "No deals," I said, stepping closer. "You painted threats on my boat, sent your son to sabotage my cameras, and tried to steal my lake with a fake claim. I know about your father, Victor. He lost to my grandfather in '72. You thought you could finish what he started." Victor's face went ashen, his voice low. "You don't know what you're up against. I'll bury you in court, drain that lake dry if I have to." "Try it," I said, unflinching. "Every move you make is on camera. Fraud, vandalism, threats. Your investors will love that story." Clara Voss appeared, notebook in hand, her photographer snapping shots. "Mr. Langston, care to comment on these allegations?" she asked, voice sharp. Victor spun away, shoving through the crowd. Residents shouted questions. "Where's our money going? Is the HOA broke?" Derek tried to calm them, but the chaos grew. Tents came down, boats were hauled out, and the investors vanished, their trust in Victor shattered. As the crowd dispersed, Mia clapped my shoulder. "We did it," she said. "They're exposed, and the injunction holds. Clara's story will finish them." I looked out at the lake, now quiet again, its surface unbroken. Grandpa's journal flashed in my mind. "Fight for it, Ethan." I had, and the battle wasn't over. But for the first time, I felt him smiling. The lake was mine, and I'd protect it, not just for me, but for every ripple, every fish, every memory it held. The lake was still again, its surface a quiet rebuke to the chaos of the tournament's collapse. The injunction had scattered the crowd, leaving only tire tracks and crumpled cups on my east shore. Victor's investors had fled, his lies exposed, but I knew he wouldn't go quietly. His threat to drain the lake dry echoed, a reminder of his family's grudge against mine. As I stood on the dock, the weight of Grandpa's journal in my pocket, I felt both victory and dread. This wasn't over. Mia, Deputy Torres, and I returned to the cabin, the air heavy with next steps. "We've got them on the ropes," Mia said, spreading legal papers across the table. "Clara's article is live online, front page tomorrow. Residents are furious, demanding an HOA audit. But Victor's still out there, and he's got resources. We need to lock this down." "What's the play?" I asked, pouring coffee, its bitter steam grounding me. "Push the county to investigate their finances," she said. "Those lake access fees residents paid, likely in Victor's pocket. And we file a fraud complaint against him for pitching the resort to investors. Your cameras caught everything. Use it." Before I could respond, Hank burst in, his face flushed. "You need to see this," he said, thrusting his phone at me. A social media post from a Cedar Grove resident showed a leaked email from Victor to Kim Randall. "If Caldwell won't sell, we pivot. Condemn the lake for environmental hazards. Force a sale." My stomach churned. Condemn my lake. It was pristine, healthier than ever, but a forged report could sway officials. He's insane, I said, handing the phone back. He'd poison the water to get it? Hank nodded. His old man tried the same in '72, claimed Amos's lake was polluted to grab it cheap. Didn't work then, but Victor's got better lawyers now. We need to move fast, Mia said. I'll draft a motion to block any condemnation. You meet Clara, give her the email. The public needs to see this. I met Clara at a diner in town, away from Cedar Grove's prying eyes. Her sharp gaze locked on me as I slid the printed email across the table. This is dynamite, she said, scanning it. Victor's promising investors a quick fix, condemning your lake to seize it. Residents are already livid about the fees. This'll blow the lid off. When can you publish? I asked, stirring my coffee. The clink of the spoon loud in the quiet booth. Funk Gaichin story loikwun, hubsutton, Gaichin fo tungwe mi. Tomorrow, with the tournament story, she said, but I dug deeper. Victor's shell company funneled HOA funds to a developer in Portland. If we tie him to misappropriation, he's done. Can you get more resident support? I'll try, I said. Some are skeptical, think I'm the outsider causing trouble. Clara leaned forward. Then show them you're not. Host something, open the lake, prove you're not hoarding it, win them over. Back home, I found my boat returned, parked at the dock with a curt HOA note, released per court order. The paint was still scratched, but it stood defiant. I ran my hand along its hull, Grandpa's words in my mind, water's for everyone who respects it. Clara was right, I needed the community, not just the law. The next morning, Clara's article hit, a blistering expose of Victor's fraud, the fake easement, and the condemnation threat. Social media erupted, residents calling for Victor's head. The HOA called an emergency meeting, and I went, Mia by my side. The community center was packed, over 80 people, their anger crackling. Kim Randall stood at the podium, pale and stammering, Victor nowhere in sight. "Where's our money?" a woman shouted, waving the article. "You charged us for lake rights you don't have." Kim raised her hands. "We're reviewing the situation. Mr. Langston is unavailable, but will address all concerns." I stood, heart steady. "You can start by explaining why Victor planned to condemn my lake for a resort he doesn't own," I said, holding up the leaked email. The room exploded, residents shouting over each other. "That's my home," a man yelled. "We trusted you." Mia stepped up, calm but firm. "The HOA's been defrauding you for years. The lake belongs to the Caldwell family, not Cedar Grove. We're filing for a full financial audit. You deserve answers." Kim's face crumpled, and she fled the podium. 2 board members resigned on the spot, their chairs scraping as they left. A woman approached me after, her eyes wary but curious. "I'm Ellen, live on the North Shore. If you own the lake, what's your plan? Lock us out?" "No," I said, meeting her gaze. "My grandfather let locals fish here if they respected it. I want the same, a fair system, not HOA lies. Come to the lake tomorrow. I'm hosting a cleanup day. See for yourself." Ellen nodded slowly. "I'll spread the word." The cleanup drew over 30 residents, some skeptical, others eager. We hauled trash, planted native grasses, and I shared Grandpa's journal, reading his dream of a lake for all who cared for it. Ellen, now warming, said, "My kids used to fish here, never knew it was private. You're not what I expected." "I'm learning too," I admitted. "This lake's a trust, not a prize." Days later, Mia called with news. Counties auditing the HOA. They found $200,000 in lake maintenance fees unaccounted for. Victor's vanished. Rumor is he's in Idaho, dodging subpoenas. And his Portland developers pulling out. "What about the condemnation threat?" I asked. "Dead," she said. "Your water tests came back pristine. No judge will touch Victor's claim now." Inspired by Grandpa's journal, I formed the Caldwell Lake Trust, a nonprofit for sustainable access. Residents could buy affordable permits, funds going to conservation. The East Shore became a small park with a fishing pier and a plaque. Water is life, not a commodity. Ethan Caldwell. The Golden Anglers reformed. Open to all, no elite nonsense. One evening, Hank joined me on the boat, the lake silver under the moon. "Your grandpa'd be proud," he said, cracking a beer. "You turned his fight into something bigger." "I hope so," I said, casting a line. "I ignored this place too long. This is my apology to him." The lake thrived, clearer than ever, fish darting in its depths. Victor's schemes had crumbled, but the real victory was the community we built, one that honored the water, not exploited it. The saga of Lake Caldwell teaches us that standing up for what's rightfully yours can transform not just your life, but an entire community. Ethan's fight against the Cedar Grove HOA's greed shows the power of resilience, rooted in legacy and truth. By unmasking Victor's lies and reclaiming his lake, Ethan honored his grandfather's belief: water is life, not a commodity. His creation of the Caldwell Lake Trust proves that justice isn't just about winning, it's about building something better, uniting people through shared respect for nature. This story reminds us to protect our heritage, challenge injustice, and foster community over exploitation. It's a call to act with courage, to dig deep into our values, and to never let bullies rewrite our story. Want more tales of grit and triumph? Like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell to catch every thrilling story of ordinary people fighting extraordinary battles. Join us and be inspired.